Welcome back on Dynamod. Today I want to propose you a video about a series of video about the new Battletome of the dev, Soulblight Gravelords. I decided to create different videos, each one with a different focus, so that not everything is in one single video, but you can go to see the video that you are interested about. So I invite you to go in the description and see the playlist, so where you can find all the videos that are created about such Battletome, and you can find the one that you are interested about. And now we can begin with the focus about Kastelai Dynasty. And we can see now the battle traits with the group of the Sanguinary Lance. And the first one that you can see is the Shifting Keep. That it's quite similar to Ageless Scanning, but with an important difference. And it's that instead of setting up a Kastelai Dynasty Blood Knights units, so only Blood Knights on the battlefield, you can place it on a side and say that it's set up in ambush as a reserve unit. You can set up one reserve in an ambush for each unit you have already set up on the battlefield. So the best ratio that you can gain is 1-to-1. And at the end of any of your month phases, you can set up one or more of these units on the battlefield wholly within 6 inches of the battlefield edge and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. At the start of the 4th battle round, reserve units that are still in ambush are destroyed. It's really quite important about this, and you don't have to worry about superimpose with the one that are from the Unquite Dead, because the Blood Knights are not summonable units, so you don't have such problems. So you have to remember that it's a really strategic battle trait. It's quite limited because it's only referring about the Blood Knights, but because the Kastelai Dynasty it's mainly, I can say, suited for the Blood Knights, it's not such a real problem. Also because in the Kastelai Dynasty the Blood Knights are battle lines, so it's quite important to remember that you have a lot of options to play with these battle traits, with this dynasty. The second battle trait is Might of the Crimson Keep, that makes that each time a friendly Kastelai Dynasty vampire, so every vampire as keyword in this Kastelai Dynasty one of your army, unit destroyed a enemy unit, that friendly unit gains the relevant ability below for the rest of the battle. A unit cannot gain the same ability more than once per battle. So remember that you gain only once, but that can be quite amazing. If the enemy unit was a hero or monster, you gain the Bloodied Strength, that makes that you can add 1 to the damage characteristic of melee weapons used by that unit, excluding the mount. So it can be really quite amazing, because you gain a lot of more damage, but you have to kill a hero or a monster. The second option is that if the enemy unit has a wound characteristic of 3 or more, and was not a hero or a monster, so you can go only against a least units of the opponent, you gain Stolen Vitality, that make you add 1 to the wound characteristic of that unit. And it's quite amazing, because, okay, maybe on character it works not so good, but think about the Blood Knights themselves or other vampires, it can become really quite amazing to improve the survivability and even the lethality of such unit. And then we have that if the enemy unit has a wound characteristic of 2 or less, you gain Absorbed Spirit, that make that you add 2 to run and charge rolls for that unit. And I think that this is the most amazing and easier, because it's easier to find units with 2 or less wounds available from your enemies. So it means that you can kill that one first, gain such bonus, and then be able to make a reach for other units faster. So this is a really quite amazing one about the battle traits that you can have, because you can really improve your armies. If you base your Kastelai Dynasty on vampires, this is one of the best battle traits that you can choose to improve your army itself. Really quite nice. The only downside of such battle traits is that you had to destroy that unit with your ones of vampires, but it doesn't count if it is destroyed the enemy unit by battle shock test. So you have to pay attention how much strength and how you plan the order about the combat to use such vampires once, or eventually also some shooting, cause it's not only a melee. So it's something that you have to be able to understand how to make your thought about creating damages and destroy even methodically the enemy units. And now we see the common traits of the group Lords of the Crimson Keep. The first one that we see is Beacon of Bloodshed. That makes that after this general makes a charge move, you can pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of the general and roll a dice. So it means that you have to be in close combat. And on a 3+, that unit suffered d3 mortal wounds. It's quite good, but it's a bit like a normal ability for a lot of units, so it can be still a way to improve your way to do wounds to your opponent units. Because remember that eventually, thanks to also these wounds, you can gain from the Might of the Crimson Keep battle trait. Still, it's quite normal as command trait. Then we have Master of Retaliation that make that at the end of the combat phase, if any wounds or mortal wounds were allocated to this general in that phase and this general was not slain, you can pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of them, and it doesn't have to be the same that inflicted the wounds or mortal wounds. Roll a dice. On a 2+, that unit suffer d3 mortal wounds. It can be quite interesting anyway. Okay, you have to survive and it's an after effect as damages, but still I think that it could be interesting to play with. And then we have Power in the Blood, that makes that if an enemy unit is destroyed within 6 inch of this general, this general gains the relevant ability from the Might of the Crimson Keep battle trait above, even if the enemy unit was not destroyed by this general. So it prevents the problem that I said you before about the order on which you have to make the damages. So it means that you can eventually afford to make another unit attacks and still gain, or even if this same general is not in combat with that specific unit, it can gain that ability and eventually can gain also the bonus before it attacks itself. So it's quite interesting about this, because it allows you to have more freedom with the general itself. So quite intriguing one. And then we have Rousing command that once per battle, so only once, at the start of the combat phase, you can say that this general will rouse their warriors. If you do so, until the end of that phase, so that specific combat phase, friendly Kastelai Dynasty vampire units wholly within 12 inch of this general benefit from the bloodied strength and the stolen vitalities abilities from the Might of the Crimson Keep battle trait that we have seen before, even if they not already gain one or both of them. So it means that you can use quite a lot of amazing way, because it means that you have the stolen ability, so you have an improved wound characteristics, and you have the bloody strength that make you make even more damages. So it's quite useful because it allows you to make such on all the unit wholly within 12 inch. So the range is not so big because you have also to be wholly within, but if you plan accurately how you make movement and deploy such units, you can make that you can have that this same rousing commander ability make that the units themselves can gain after the Might of Crimson Keep abilities related, because they can kill that unit or those units that they are fighting against. So it becomes really quite interesting. About this, I suggest you to have a general that can move a lot, because in that way it can make that it can position itself on the battlefield in a strategic way. Anyway, even if it's a single battle use, so once per battle, it's quite an amazing one to remember that you can choose. And then we have Swift and Deadly, that it's similar to the Aristocracy of Blood of the Legion of Blood. In fact, we can reroll charge rolls for friendly Kastelai Dynasty units, while there are only within 12 inch of this genre. So it's a synergic command trait that I think that it's always a good thing. But remember that you have to be wholly within 12 inch, because it's not so great but not so small as way. But remember that the main part of the units that you go to use are something that require a lot of space if you play the Kastelai Dynasty, because they are all cavalry or similar ones. So it's really still quite amazing, but you have to pay attention about how you position and move the general and the other units of your army. And then we have a craving for massacre that makes that this general can run and still charge later in the same turn. So it's a nice way to make your general really reach the enemy's units faster. Moreover, if you have been able to gain the absorbed speed ability from the battle trait Might of the Crimson Keep, so it can improve quite a lot your ways of the general to be in close combat. And now we can talk about the artifacts of power, the category relics of Red Conquest. And the first one that we see is Sword of Red Seniskark, that make that you pick one of the bearer's melee weapon, so no mounts, only the bearer and only one, in the combat phase. If any enemy models are slain by attacks by that specific weapon made, add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by friendly Soulblight Gravelords units wholly within 12 inch of the bearer until the end of that phase. So it's quite interesting, but remember that there are some things to remember, because the first thing is that the bearer of such weapon has to fight before all the other units, because otherwise, if the other units has yet fought, will not be able to gain benefits from such artifact. And you have also to remember that you have to be wholly within 12 inch with those units. So it's important, because if you're going to play the Kastelai Dynasty, usually you'll go to play units that has not a small base. So it can be easy to be outside or to be remain inside this wholly within 12 inch from the bearer. So pay attention about this, because the moving and how you decide to, I can say, dispose and moving in close combat the various units change eventually how you are able to benefit from such artifact. Still, it's an amazing one, but remember that the essential part is that the bearer has to fight first, then all the other units that has to be wholly within this 12 inch. And then we have Blood Saint's Shield that make you subtract 1 from casting rolls for enemy wizards within 6 inch of the bearer. It's not bad, but the range is quite small, so you have to be quite close to those wizards to be able to apply such effect. So be prepared to be really easy to go in close combat with wizard if you want to apply such. And then we have Standard of the Crimson Keep that make you subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made with missile weapons that target this bearer. So it's really quite intriguing, because it has one specific thing that I like. It's that it's not really about the shooting phase, it's all the missile weapons. So it's perfect to say, for example, for models like the Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragons, or anyway big models that has a lot of wounds and suffer from decreasing the wounds, so they can decrease the damage table that they have. So it can become really quite interesting to decrease the hit rolls of the shooting units. So quite intriguing to take, and one of the best choices about the artifacts of the Kastelai Dynasty. And then we have Gravesend Shard that makes that once per battle, so only once, at the start of the hero phase, and it doesn't specify which one it's the hero phase about. You can say that the bear will crush the Gravesend Shard. If you do so, add 1 to rolls for the Deathless Minions battle trait, so it means that you save at the 5+ instead of the 6+, the wounds and the mortal wounds. And for friendly units, Soulblight Gravelords unit, this it works if they are wholly within 12 inch of the bear until the end of that turn. So you have an entire turn with a Deathless Minions 5+. You have to pay attention away to that wholly within 12 inch. Still, it's a really quite amazing one. You have really to pay attention because it's only once per battle, but it can really change the flow of the battle itself, because you gain a lot more saving possibility. So it means that you can gain a lot of more survivability with your units, and so even can make that your units will survive and even damage the opponent much better, or anyway resist, for example, to control objective or other options. So quite a thing to remember that can be intriguing. Okay, it's casual because it's on a 5+ with the Deathless Minions, but it's a weapon that make your shields more awesome, so to take note. And then we have Fragment of the Keep that make you subtract 1 for wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons, only melee, by enemy units within 6 inch of the bear. Here there are some things to remember. Is that it's only melee weapons, so no shooting, no other sources, but the units has to be within, but doesn't need to target your bearer. So it means that even if these units are going to fight against other units, it can be quite awesome because you decrease those wounds. So it's really quite interesting because it means to decrease the losses for your own army, and it's in a strategic way. So if you are able to make that the bear is able to, I can say, be put in the way that it's in the range of more of enemy units, it can be quite awesome if you are able to make the other units of your ones to be able to make a combat against those depowered enemy units. And then we had the Red Casket that once per battle, so only once, at the start of your charge phase, you can say that the bearer will draw upon the power of the Red Casket. If you do so, add 3 to charge roll for the bearers of that phase. So it's quite interesting because it means that you reach the enemy easier, and be sure that you reach some time. Moreover, it can be combined, for example, with the combat trait of the general that is swift and deadly, for example, so that you need only to be wholly within of the general to reroll also this charge that it's implemented. Or if you have been able, you can gain the ability of absorbing speed of the Might of Crimson Keep battle trait, or eventually you can use this in the way that then you can gain that ability, so that you can always gain a better movement. Otherwise, if it is the general itself that has such artifact, you can think about having the command trait a craving for massacre that we have seen before. So you have a lot of options to combine these, but even standalone, it's something that it can be a nice way to make that you are able to make that specific model be able to reach the combat itself. So what to say about this Kastelai Dynasty? It's not bad at all. Remember that to make that this dynasty is full developed, you need to have an army that is based on vampires keyword models. Otherwise, you'll lose a bit of synergy. Still, it's really quite amazing, and you are able to gain a lot from combining this Kastelai Dynasty with the general ability of the Soulblight Gravelords Battletome. And about this, I want to remember you that in the description there is the playlist where you can find the focuses about the general Soulblight Gravelords battle traits, and also the other focuses about the other Bloodlines, Dynasty or Legends that are available for the Soulblight Gravelords about. So eventually go to see about those ones. Still, this is a quite nice dynasty to play with, so it gives you a lot of ways, more about a fast charging and combat style. So I think that it's a quite an aggressive but still quite awesome of the ways that you can play your Soulblight Gravelords army. So pay attention about this. Anyway, from Dynamod it's everything. I invite you to put a like on this video, to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell, and to comment this video if you are interested in something about this video or you want to suggest me some arguments for other videos. I hope to see you again to the next time.